Hi, it's Rachel. I'm diving into Revelation and talking about the seven seals, and I want to mention something here that's very important. Okay? One is that the Bible is only understood when it is taught by the Spirit of God and not by the flesh mind, the carnal mind, the interpretations of mankind. Because if you go that route, you get all kinds of distortions and it's used for very great evils. If you're coming to the Bible, it has to be taught by the Spirit of God. Okay? So God is supreme. His Spirit is supreme. The other thing about what the Bible is, it is a tool. Just like your life is a tool, relationships are a tool, creation is a tool, all these are things to teach you. And you can take one situation and you can learn, it can show many different pictures, which are different layers. So that's what I'm talking about here, is that this is one layer, one picture that this scripture is painting. Okay? So the layers are often can paint different pictures. Sometimes what they'll do often is they paint a individual experience picture, okay, of your soul. Like you can see your own experience of how you have been called out of Egypt, gone through the wilderness, entering to the promised land. So that whole picture is a very personal journey, but it's also the journey of God's children. It was also the journey that they took back when they originally went through it. Okay, so you see there are different layers. So this layer that I'm speaking to you today about this revelation is a layer of the individual experience. Because this, to me, this is the fundamental and most significant, because once you understand this, then it is applicable to mankind on a bigger scale. Because remember, God is concerned with the souls of mankind, with us, each one individually. And the revelation of Jesus Christ, in the end, is what he came to do was to resurrect us, to create us into new creations, to make us new. And so this revelation is a picture of life infusing death, of death being destroyed and life growing up. And that, therefore, it is a revelation of Christ because he is the one that is bringing life to this earth. So the first seal, it says in verse 1, in chapter 6, "Now I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals." Okay, so Christ is opening these. "And I heard one of the four living creatures saying with a voice like thunder," because he's coming from the throne. So the living creature was a creation that is alive. And that's why it's so significant that it's a living creature versus a dead one, because we are all dead in our trespasses. So this is a living creature. But this creature has already come to life. Okay, so this is one of the four living creatures. It says, and this is the lion. Okay, this is what the lion is saying. And you'll see why. "And I looked, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on it had a bow and a crown, and a crown was given to him, and he went out conquering and to conquer." One of the first things that you see in your coming out of your tomb, remember this is the seals that is on the scroll, which were the book, were the scroll, were the epistle, and he's opening them up. And what you first see is what you receive is the Spirit. Okay, so you have had, remember, the whole world is under the sway of the wicked one. The spirit of disobedience was governing you, your mind, your heart, and your garments, which is your personality, your expression into this earth. And so the first thing that happens in your transformation coming out is that you have Christ within you, within the Holy of Holies, that is coming to conquer your spirit, to conquer your mind, to conquer your heart, to conquer your personality. And that is exactly what he does. And that's what it feels like. You first have to tune into that spirit. That's why I said there's a holy of holies within each of us. It's the seed that we all have. The way to access that seed of life is to come and want to have that communion with Christ within you, the internal teacher, the Holy Spirit, and you're willing to say, I want to know truth, and I'm willing, if you're seeking, what you're saying is, I want to walk in that truth. I'm willing to leave what's behind, and I want to move forward. And you want that heart, you want to love. So when you have that, that allows you entrance into a communion, because now you're being humbled to be taught by God. He teaches the humble. And so when you have that, I want truth and I want to love, when you have that humility, that's when you start to hear his counsel, because God speaks between the cherubim. He speaks from within the Holy of Holies. But you have to have that mindset, okay, of being willing to transform into a new creation, to leave things behind. It's not that you have yet. It's the desire, okay, because that's really, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really all we can have, because it's all the work of God in us. But we have the desire, okay? So that is a beautiful prayer to pray, for the desire to love perfectly, to walk in truth, to walk in wisdom. So this is the first seal, which you have this white horse, and these horses are, you think of the chariots of God, the chariots that were of the Egyptian army that were consumed in the Red Sea. Horses carry the spirits, okay? They're the power. They carry that spirit of whatever it is, okay? And so that will help you to understand. So this horse within you is part of you, part of your spirit. That is the spirit part of you. Remember, there's the 4 parts that I've been kind of talking about: the spirit, the mind, the heart, and the personality. Okay, and it's saying that your spirit has now said, okay, Christ, I want you to be my spirit and ride that horse. Okay, so on the second seal, it says, when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, come and see. Come and see. Have the eyes of understanding. What did it say in Zechariah? 7 eyes. Come and understand, because that's how the seals are opened of your tomb. Another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was granted to the one who sat on to take peace from the earth, and that people should kill one another. And it's interesting, because when you look into that, it's like they should kill themselves too. And there was given to him a great sword. After what God starts doing, this is the second creature around the throne that you see in Revelation 4 is the calf. Okay? This has a couple of things. One, remember when Moses went up into the mountain to receive the commandments of God, what did they do? They made a calf in his absence and they worshipped it. Okay? This is this. And also, so one, they're worshiping a calf. 2, you have to sacrifice, in a sense, be willing to die to yourself. Okay, your will, your passions, your desires, because that is at the very heart of what fuels your mind. So that's why this horse is red. It is talking about, is when you pour out your heart, you're pouring out your blood, your life. This is representing, where this redness is that reflection of the fallen nature of man. Okay, with Esau and Edom and all these different things, Adam, all representing this redness because of the blood that was in them, that because they were fallen. Okay, and that's what all this is represented. It's like it's showing, it's about the heart. So this horse is about the heart. Okay, in your heart, what Christ will do in this renewal of you coming out of the tomb is that your peace starts to leave you. Because as you start drawing into Him, what you start seeing is the wickedness of your own heart. And you realize that your heart is indeed just very wicked, and you need a new heart. And you start desiring to love and desiring to walk after the God's ways. This is that the heart reflects your desires, your passions, your affections, okay? And this is what you have to sacrifice. This is another element of you, that decrepit heart that you have to die to. Okay, so all these different parts are saying that the different parts, you have to let go of that spirit of disobedience and welcome in that spirit of Christ that is coming to conquer. And as He does that, these different horses are representing the different things that are happening within that spirit, that part of you. Okay, this is the journey of a caterpillar to a butterfly. It's your journey of the different parts of you dying and being recreated. So yet while you're dead, yet you're alive, but yet you're dying, okay, because you're not actually, your physical body, you're staying intact. Just like a caterpillar, that entity, yes, it dies, but it doesn't die. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so, and this is the thing, is that you get to a point where you want to kill, you want to sacrifice, you want that part of you to die, because you want the new heart. You understand what that is, because Christ is in you, that white horse, teaching you, instructing you, engraving on your tomb, helping you to come alive. And there was given Him a great sword, and that is often what Christ holds, and even out of His mouth comes that two-edged sword, right? Because it is His words that again destroy the lies in our life and give us the truth. They destroy the corruption, and they give us what is incorruptible. All right, the third seal, He said, when He opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, "Come and see." The third living creature was a man, the face of a man. So I looked, and behold, a black horse, and he who sat on it a pair of scales in his hand, and that word scales is like yoke. So this black horse, this man, it's when you have this heart, what happens is it starts to affect your mind, because now you want your mind to be renewed. And what it brings you to is repenting in dust and ashes. It's blackness. All that you were, you want it to be destroyed. You are wanting a new mind, a mind that's renewed. And so you're taking on His yoke. He says, learn from me. Because when you take on His yoke, because He's always going to be a part of you, He is going to teach you and to guide you. And as you learn to walk with God, you learn this great trust, and you start to realize that your work becomes, actually, you eventually move into rest, because God starts doing everything through you. Okay, so that's what this is representing, because as you allow Him to do that, what you're constantly doing is you're repenting in dust and ashes, that blackness. You're constantly dying to those different parts of you and letting them die, letting them shrivel up and becoming into nothing and being blown away, so that you can gain something new. And this is what you get in verse 6. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. Okay, so this is when you get into the part of where your mind is starting to be recreated, it is affecting all these different parts of you. Okay, so it's like you are becoming that hammered work of the cherubim. You know, the cherubim was crafted and cut out of olive wood, and then it was overlaid with gold. It was a hammered work. It is a process of this chiseling and pounding, and you are beaten. I mean, that's what it says. It's like this, it's a beaten work, this gold. And remember that gold is that personality that overlays you, right? That reflects God. So you're going through, this is describing the process of buying and selling with Christ. Remember, he said, I counsel you to buy and sell with me, the gold refined in fire. So through your trials, through your afflictions, you're learning, what does this mean? Why am I afflicted? Help me, God, to understand this and grow and to walk in your ways. And so you're going through this act of learning and obeying and changing, and you're purging things out of your life, and it's just this great process. And what's interesting, and what this said to me in verse 6, is because wheat is this golden wheat, right? It's wheat versus tares. Wheat is this something that's to be desired, but it's a quart of wheat for a denarius. A denarius is what the workers got at the end of the day. It was a day's wages. Okay, so it's saying an equal portion. So a quart of wheat for a denarius versus 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. And again, this can have many different meanings, but when you come to God, what you want is you want exactly what you need. You don't want extra. You don't want to gather up more than you need. You don't want an abundance. You don't need 3 quarts when you only need 1 quart, because you're trusting God. This is a very important thing that you learn as you start to follow God and you start to be renewed, is that you're trusting him for your provision. You're trusting him for today. That's why Christ said, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough. Today is sufficient. So all that you need, you're trusting that God knows what you need and he provides what you need. And when you really trust him and walk in that obedience, that's exactly what you find. You always have what you need. And you often have an abundance because he wants you to give. So you often have an abundance, but you're trusting God for exactly what you need. You're not trying to gather up more for yourself. And that's what people do when they're trying to control the future. They're trying to gather up all this stuff, like the guy that's gathering all this stuff into a barn, and Jesus is like, but you don't realize that tonight your life will be taken. So you spent all this time gathering all this up and you weren't giving it away freely. So in here, again, it can have many different layers of meaning, but this is something that truly is a very important thing that you learn about God, is that you trust him to give you what you need when you need it. And your abundance that you have, you give it to God. So this could be 2 ways. One, it shows the choice that you have, right? Don't go for the day's wages. Don't always try to gather so much more to yourself. But the other part is that when you are buying and selling with God, he's going to start giving you abundance so that you can share it with others. Okay, so there's always multiple meanings. And do not harm the oil and the wine, because when you're going through that hammered work, don't harm the oil, because that olive tree, it symbolizes where the oil comes from, right? And that wine is that new spirit that's being crafted. Because remember, these are different parts of us. Okay, so you have this spirit and you have this heart, and you're doing all this work, but your spirit, your heart is protected. So that's what it's saying. Don't harm those, because it's a very intense work when you start buying and selling that gold with God. The last one that I'm going to address in this video is the 4th seal. And it says, when he opened the 4th seal. Okay, so, and this is exactly the journey of what you experience when you're coming out of the tomb. I mean, when you're coming out of death, when you start moving into the life of God, this is exactly the journey that you experience. So I'm so glad these are here, because it helps to bring understanding about those seals and how those prison doors are open. So in this one it says, okay, so when he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature saying, come and see. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, which also, that pale means greenish. Okay? So what should that remind you of? Greenish. When you see the fig tree starting to put forth leaves, it says when it's, let me see if I can find that. When it starts to become, okay, when its branch has already become tender. So you've gone through all this, the branch is starting to become tender. is starting to become green and full of that sap. Okay, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him. And power was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with the sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. Okay, so this is what I've been talking about recently in my videos. You can go through this process of, you feel this changed heart because you desire to love perfectly. You have this Spirit of Christ within you, working within you. You see that you've been buying and selling, and you're starting to see that reflection on the doors of your tomb of that Spirit within you. Meaning in your life, you're starting to see those little reflections, but you're not there yet. And what you do is you come to a point when you realize the fourth part of your earth, we're the dust of the earth, that has to die is that outward personality, okay? The expression of you, which when you get to that point, I mean, that feels like so much of all of you. And at that point, it's death and Hades riding out, okay? And you want death to consume that. And at that point, that fourth part of you, so your spirit has been consumed and replaced with the Spirit of Christ. Your heart has been, old one, consumed and replaced with the heart of God. Now your mind has been renewed, and it has been that buying and selling. You have gotten rid of the lust, all the lust that you were going after. You have understanding that now is you're walking in that faith of God. That last thing that you see is you're hitting the tomb walls, and you see that that personality that was crafted out of corruption, and you're like, wow, that has to go too. And at that point, you feel truly, your old self feels truly dead. Dead. It's a very powerful moment and understanding to come to, okay? But that is beautiful, because that's when in you death is starting to be swallowed up in life. Because remember, this is the revelation. These are the seals breaking open. This is life coming in. Okay, so it's over the fourth of the earth, a fourth part of you. Because remember, we're transitioning in stages. That's how we can remain alive, yet die and come alive. And this is what brings you to that point, right? Is that one, to kill with a sword. Remember, I talked about he's carrying this sword at the end. And what that is, that's cutting you off forever from death, from shame, from sin, from that control of all those things that I just went through. And this hunger is driving you. Okay, you are hungering so much for the righteousness of God. And if you hunger, you know what? You are going to be filled. But that means you have to get rid of all that filth that has been in you and be renewed. And in Psalm 107, it says in verse 9, for he satisfies the longing soul and fills the hungry soul with goodness. And it's interesting, that's an incredible chapter. So here you have this hunger with death. You let your life be slayed. You let the beast consume the flesh, because you know what? You don't even want it anymore. You don't want anything of that life. But here's why you can stay alive, because you have all this newness of life that's bubbling up, that's coming up underneath it. It's like you've been renewed from the inside out. So that newness of life is just pushing all those old things out. It's burning them away. It's consuming them till eventually there's no more. And that's what that means. Okay, that's why that's that last one. That's why that's the eagle. Because you're starting to gain your wings, and the Spirit of God is carrying you. Because when you no longer have anything of yourself left, and now it's all been renewed by God's creation, recreating you, you now become an eagle. You are a bird. You're flying. It's the butterfly with the wings. You're a creature of the air. You're no longer grounded in anything of the flesh. You are cut off. You do not have any cares of the world. You care nothing of this worldly wisdom. Nothing of the world are you serving, are you bowing down to, are you conforming to. None of that is governing you. You don't have the lust governing you, or the addictions, or any of those things govern you. What's governing you is all that was renewed. the new spirit, the new mind, the new heart, and the last is that personality, that reflection of God. And that's what shows it, is because now when you are reflecting God, that is because God is governing you. He is a part of you. You are doing the will of the Father, just like Jesus said. Those who are my mother and my brother and my sister are those who do the will of the Father. It is a reflection of his beautiful personality. And I'll dive into the next seals in the next video.